Hello and welcome to Headlines. After the formation of a first fully fledged Lebanese government in 2 years on the 8th of February, there have been some expectations that this important development would also increase the likelihood of Israel withdrawing from the south of the country by the extended 18th of February deadline, initially set for the 18th of January, in line with the 27th of November ceasefire deal. Although the majority of Israeli troops have withdrawn from southern Lebanon, they remain in 5 strategic outposts in defiance of the very same 27th of November ceasefire deal, citing a range of security reasons, as to the interpretation of which Israel and the government in Beirut remain at loggerheads. Newly elected Lebanese President Joseph Aoun recently said that his government had been working very hard to achieve a full Israeli withdrawal through diplomatic means, adding that, quote, "The ceasefire must be respected and the Israeli enemy cannot be trusted." What is very certain here is that there is nothing that is certain and everything is in fact uncertain. And today I'm joined by Adnan Nasser, a news correspondent, Beirut, Lebanon, and Mr. Rabih Mata, activist, member of the Council of the National Bloc. He's also joining from Beirut, Lebanon. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now let's hear first from you. I'm terribly sorry for my shilly-shally introduction. Very nice said that what is very certain is that everything is practically uncertain. When I spoke to you last time, it was after the formation of the government, and there were hopes that date of 8th of February, the fact that Lebanon has managed to establish first fully fledged government in 2 years, would also increase the likelihood of the Israeli withdrawal by the extended 18th of February deadline. But it looks like Israelis are not going to withdraw. Are you surprised? And explain why.
Well, I'm not all that much surprised. When the Israelis occupy a territory, they tend to try every measure at their disposal, every lever at their disposal to stay in that occupied territory. The pretext that allowed them to enter Lebanon is over. There was an agreement that was signed with the Lebanese state, the Israelis, mediated by the United States, in November of 27th. The Lebanese government has said wholeheartedly and that they are prepared to take on the responsibility of defending the country through the Lebanese armed forces. Now, Hezbollah has not attacked the Israelis since the deal had been signed, but the Israelis have been violating the ceasefire agreement until this very day. Now, it's true what you said, that the Israeli forces, in majority of them, have withdrawn from most of South Lebanon, but they're trying to remain in these 5 strategic areas, as they call it. I would argue that this is a pretext. The Israelis are violating the ceasefire by staying in this area and creating a buffer zone, which is a direct violation. And now the Lebanese army and the Lebanese government is in this awkward position of trying to explain to the Lebanese people and to Hezbollah, and specifically Hezbollah supporters, that they're ready to do whatever it takes to defend them. At the same time, President Joseph Aoun has said the Lebanese army is in a political position, a very difficult political position, and cannot use force. But he will use diplomatic means to try to pressure the Israelis to leave, aka speaking to Washington.
Mr. Massa, Israelis are saying that these deadlines, including the original 18th of January deadline and the one that is to expire today, have never meant to be set in stone, and they are always contingent on the Lebanese army's ability to fulfill its own obligations emanating from the 27th of November ceasefire deal in terms of disarming Hezbollah. And impression given is that with this form of interpretation, Israel in fact will not leave southern Lebanon anytime soon. What is your take on the latest developments?
Well, I do agree with my colleague Adnan, and I believe there are all lines in the sands. The Israelis rarely promises, particularly when they come and occupy Lebanese land and stand there. And now they're talking about keeping 5 posts of observation and control over southern Lebanon. This is a real occupation. They're not really withdrawing. And the Lebanese people have all the right to resist it and fight it. It is in human rights resolutions that people have the right to liberate their land and resist it. And I will never believe Israeli promises,
Mr. Mata, we talked about Israel's cavalier approach. I mean, that is what Israeli position is referred to by analysts. They believe that Israel, for sometimes very legitimate reasons, sometimes less than legitimate reasons, always maintains and claims to maintain full operational freedom when it comes to actions on the ground. The question that I would like to put to you is, what are those factors that could limit this liberality enjoyed and maintained by Israel when it comes to southern Lebanon, in particular in the context of the 27th of November ceasefire deal?
Israel historically, unfortunately, had all these claims to occupy part of southern Lebanon and control that part of the country. I absolutely believe that Lebanon didn't give them any reason for them to stay. The Lebanese Army went to southern Lebanon, fulfilled the agreement that was signed,
yes,
which is unfortunately it's a surrender agreement in my opinion, but it was needed, not necessary, but to stop the Israeli aggression, we had to reach that stage. What gives Israel this upper hand, not only over Lebanon, we saw it in Gaza, we saw it in Syria, in Golan Heights. Is the unconditional support of the United States of America.
What I want to understand, you described 27th of November ceasefire deal as surrender deal. You said that it put an end to active military confrontation on the ground, but still was a surrender deal for Lebanon. It gave Israel upper hand. That deal says that the Hezbollah militia should move north of the Litani River. They should be disarmed and they should move north of the Litani River. And Lebanese army, official Lebanese army, should take over southern Lebanon, and Israelis should withdraw from southern Lebanon. Israelis always saying that Lebanese government is unable to fulfill its obligations emanating from that ceasefire deal. What is about the Lebanese army and its ability to fulfill those obligations? Because that is cited by Israel as a key reason why they are still there, because they cannot be fully reliant on the ability of Lebanese army to fulfill its obligations.
Well, from my opinion, it's totally an accuse, which is totally not true. The Lebanese army is able and trying to fulfill its obligations.
Yeah.
They went to large parts of the south. They are raiding ammunitions of Hezbollah and confiscating it. And they are trying to, the best they can, to do their job. They're trying to reach the border. However, Israel is keeping, kind of an occupied zone in southern Lebanon, and still continuing aggression. The government declared openly that they are willing to fulfill the conditions of the agreement and the decree 1701.
Adnan, you're back, I realize. I've been told you're back.
Yes, it's good to be
Adnan,
back.
my question to you that I earlier asked was about Israel's approach, which is effectively based on this fundamental linchpin, as long as it could be ascertained publicly. And that linchpin effectively says that we do, as Israelis, maintain our full operational freedom on the ground. And that is widely described by many analysts as some form of a cavalier approach to the set deadlines. The question that I want to put to you is very simple. What are those factors that could limit Israel's perceived operational freedom in terms of acting on the ground and its liberality that defines Israeli approach to set deadlines? That was my original question, and I hope that you will be able to respond to it now. Thank you.
Look, you have to remember, one of the main reason why the Israelis had withdrawn from Lebanon back in the year 2000 is that the people of the south, including Hezbollah, had resisted for many years the Israeli occupation. So depending on who you ask, some people see that the only way to get the Israelis to stop using military force in Lebanon is to resist them. The other factor, the other topic or the way to do it is for the disarmament of Hezbollah and for the full deployment of the Lebanese army, which is the army is trying to do, but it's also very difficult to have them present in the south while the Israelis are still there. The other part of it is that if you have an official demarcation deal between the Israelis and the Lebanese, mediated by the United States, this could also limit Israel's military approaches. Another thing that they can do is also Hezbollah just doesn't attack the Israelis. But it's very difficult for them to hold back if the Israelis remain in the south.
Well, Hezbollah not attacking Israeli forces or not attacking anybody, and Hezbollah not being disarmed. They're not exactly two self-same things. I mean, as long as Hezbollah militia there armed, Israelis will always say that we have a reason to stay here. At least we have to maintain some form of footprint in terms of controlling those strategic outposts.
Yes. Well, the president of Lebanon has suggested that Hezbollah's arms could be integrated into the Lebanese armed forces by saying that Hezbollah's weapons are part of the solution or must be part of the solution. So these weapons are not going to disappear, but they're simply going to change hands. At least that's the ideal outcome.
I mean, if Hezbollah militia being integrated into the Lebanese army, does it amount to Hezbollah militia being disarmed by Lebanese army?
In a way, I would say yes. I mean, this is the best conclusion. What do they get? What's going to happen? Is the Lebanese army going to show up and dismantle these weapons? No, these weapons would be integrated into the army in the same way that every militia that was disarmed after the Civil War, a majority of their weapons were handed over to the government. So this is, I think, the best outcome, as I said before.
Okay.
I don't want to take the risk of repeating myself over and over again, but I think ideally is that Hezbollah becomes a normal political party and hands over its military wing to the Lebanese armed forces and the state.
Mr. Mata, would you say that the Lebanese government currently is capable of presenting a united front in the face of these tensions with Israel? How do you evaluate the leadership of President Aoun and the whole government structure acting as one unit?
Well, I think we have a very good leadership about how to approach Hezbollah arms, and I believe that if it's held delicately, because as Adnan said, the situation is very delicate in Lebanon, particularly in Beirut. Hezbollah currently, and I went to the south last week and I talked to the people, is like an injured tiger. It's not time to attack them and criticize them. It's time to let them heal, absorb what happened, and it is a defeat to them. But ultimately, they need to hand on their arms and become a normal political party like any other party. But that will take a process. Now, the mechanism of disarming Hezbollah is still not clear.
Yes.
And it is a very delicate matter. But I think it's a matter of when, not if.
Okay, it's a matter of when, not if, you said. Adnan, a French foreign minister recently said that his country is planning to put forward a proposal for United Nations peacekeepers to replace Israeli forces at those very key points in Lebanon. I mean, what is the prospect of UN-instituted control in southern Lebanon, ultimately leading to Israeli withdrawal? I mean, permanent withdrawal from southern Lebanon. Could this mechanism be deemed as workable at this juncture?
Well, I think that this is a repetition of enforcing and calling for the support of the UN Resolution 1701. As Mr. Matar said, that this will take a long political process, and we don't know what the mechanisms are. The mechanisms to disarm Hezbollah are not clear. But the UN Resolution 1701 does dictate that Hezbollah and all militias, non-state organizations, militant organizations, must be disarmed. So I think it's going to go back to the old mechanisms of 1701.
But what is very, very unclear...
If I may add one last thing, the Prime Minister, Nawaf Salam, and President Joseph Aoun have said publicly that they are in favor of the UN Resolution 1701. Yeah. So I think everyone is in agreement of how this needs to be done. The devil is in the details, as it were.
A devil in details, and also we don't fully understand to what extent that Israeli withdrawal should happen concurrently with Hezbollah militia being moved from southern part of the country to the northern part of the country. There's a great deal of uncertainty revolving around the terminology as well, and we haven't established to what extent we are absolutely sure what Hezbollah's Hezbollah being disarmed actually mean. And my last question to both of you is going to be about the position maintained by the United States. Do you think that that pressure that the United States is currently maintaining in relation to the government in Beirut is going to change something on the ground?
If I understood your question correctly, it's what does the United States expect from the Lebanese government?
Yeah, what does it expect, and to what extent is American pressure exerted on the Lebanese government could change facts on the ground, circumstances on the ground? And to what extent is the Lebanese government will be receptive to what Americans expect from Lebanese government, and that reciprocity, where will it lead to?
I think everyone officially is in agreement with each other, meaning the United States and the Lebanese government. I suppose the Lebanese government does not support the freezing of all aid. This is the aid that the government and the people of Lebanon desperately need, especially Lebanese armed forces, if it's going to be able to execute its abilities and its security abilities in the south. What they need right now is the United States to put the pressure on the Israelis to withdraw from these so-called 5 strategic points. So the pressure needs to be universal or no pressure at all.
See, and also I would like to hear from Mr. Mata about American position maintained. I mean, earlier I put this question to Adnan about American pressure on the Lebanese government. He believes that pressure must be universal. It should be exerted on both sides, Israeli and Lebanese side, in order to achieve a positive result. What is your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, America, unfortunately, will never be on our side. Mm-hmm. You know, the pressure should be put on the Israelis more than the Lebanese, because we're not the aggressive attacking party. And already the Lebanese government expressed their full compliance with the ceasefire agreement, and they started implementing it. Now, the question of Hezbollah being northern or southern of the Litani, for me, it's a trivial question.
Well, it's
Hezbollah arms are not anymore, most of them, are not anymore in southern of the Litani.
Yeah.
But you cannot take Hezbollah, you know, as people from southern Lebanon. This is their land. Mm-hmm. They are the people of the south. As long as they're not armed and aggressive, which is not the case now, then, you know, the Israelis should be held accountable for that.
I mean, if you remember...
they are attacking us. Go ahead.
Please.
And despite the ceasefire agreement and everybody, all parties agreeing to it, you know, they're still attacking Lebanon on a daily basis. And they're still occupying part of our land. So the real pressure should be put on the Israeli side, not the Lebanese side.
I think the pressure, when we talk about the pressure being exerted on the Lebanese side, it is about Americans, and that was my original question put to Adnan, exerting pressure on Beirut, saying that do your level best to disarm Hezbollah, And they are linking this demand with also financial support, I believe, Adnan. We discussed it earlier, I think.
Yes.
I mean, what I said at the beginning, you remember, during my introduction, I said that what is very clear is that everything is unclear. And that particular sentiment of mine seems to have been reinforced during this conversation. But still, about Hezbollah being disarmed. You earlier said that, Mr. Mata, that Hezbollah cannot be legitimately be expected to be taken out of the southern Lebanon as such, because these are people living there. My question to you, I mean, allow me to ask the very last question again. Would disarmed Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, would it equal to it being disarmed? I mean, so because that the agreement stipulates that they should be north of the Litani River. It doesn't say just that they should be disarmed. They should be moved north of the Litani River. So my reading of the wording of that agreement is that a certain group of members of the militia, they are being disarmed and also forcibly removed from the certain part of the country. Not just disarmed and being allowed to stay in the southern part of the country. But your interpretation is that it's literally about depriving them of arms. Am I right? Am I right to assume that that's what you said, Adnan and Mr. Mata?
If Mr. Matar, if you'd like to go first, but I will just say something really quickly. A colleague did talk to me last week about this notion of Israeli occupation and resistance. And I will have to say this. So long as there is some form of occupation in the south by the Israelis, regardless if it's Hezbollah or not, there's always going to be those that will resist occupation. This is a fact of life and the nature of human beings. And it's unlikely it's going to change in the near future.
But that's very similar to Palestinian argument about Gaza. As long as there is going to be Israeli occupation in Palestine, there will be some form of resistance, and that resistance will assume military shape. Is it similar to that argument, or have I wrongly compared that narrative with your argument?
No, I think it's a universal thing. I mean, when people are occupied, they tend to resist. And there's already an agreement that the Israelis are supposed to leave. On 2 occasions, they've extended the deadline. So I don't see any justification or any reason why people would not want to resist. I mean, we see individual civilians going back to the south, putting their hands in front of the Israeli tanks, saying, you know, this is my land, this is my home.
I understand that. I understand.
This is just a natural way of doing things. People are people.
Sure. Mr. Mata, let's hear from you as well, and we have to resume, I believe. Please.
Absolutely. It's it is engraved in the human rights of people to defend their land. It's like the French resistance when land. People will resist the Israeli occupation and presence until the end. Hezbollah or not Hezbollah, let it be. You know, but they will resist it. But let me tell you something. Hezbollah military arm is almost crippled. Who will resist the presence of the Israelis in the south will be the southerners themselves, the people of the land. Hopefully the best solution will be, or the outcome of this tragic situation, because the destruction that I saw when I visited the south is it's almost like Hiroshima in some places. You know, hopefully the best outcome is for the Israelis apply an agreement, go back and leave our land. And I think then we can have a period of peace for quite a while. I'm not gonna guesstimate.
Well, thank you very much to both of you, Adnan and Mr. Mata. Thank you very much to both of you. This was Adnan Nasser, a news correspondent from Beirut, Lebanon, and Mr. Rabi Mata, activist member of the Council of the National Bloc, who joined from Beirut, Lebanon. See you very soon.